We are now live. We are now recording. Okay, so tonight's topic is night operations. And what I'll do, this is my first time teaching over Zoom. So what I'm going to do is have slides, and then some of the slides have voice recordings. And then a lot of the recordings are going to refer to certain slides. And because of the way I'm doing it, I'm gonna have to show those slides after the voice recording is done. And I don't know if it's ever been done the way I'm going to do it tonight. So I hope to get some feedback afterwards and see what you ladies think about it. And so I'm gonna go ahead and start with the first slide. So I'm gonna go ahead and now I'm gonna share my screen somewhere down here. Let me see. Actually, let's see. Okay, so do you guys see just the slide, or do you guys see like my whole screen?
You see the slide.
Okay, very good. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and play the first slide. It's gonna be about, it's a long one. It's about 7.5 minutes. So I'm going to play it, and then afterwards I will pause that, and then we'll go through some slides that this slide will be referring to. So here we go.
Night vision. It is estimated that once fully adapted to darkness, the rods are 10,000 times more sensitive to light than the cones, making them the primary receptors for night vision. Since the cones are concentrated near the fovea, the rods are also responsible for much of the peripheral vision. The concentration of cones in the fovea can make a night blind spot in the center of the field of vision. To see an object clearly at night, the pilot must expose the rods to the image. This can be done by looking 5 degrees to 10 degrees off-center of the object to be seen. This can be tried in a dim light in a darkened room. When looking directly at the light, it dims or disappears altogether. When looking slightly off-center, it becomes clearer and brighter. Refer to Figure 16-14. When looking directly at an object, the image is focused mainly on the fovea, where detail is best seen. At night, the ability to see an object in the center of the visual field is reduced, as the cones lose much of their sensitivity and the rods become more sensitive. Looking off-center can help compensate for this night blind spot. Along with the loss of sharpness, acuity, and color at night, depth perception and judgment of size may be lost. While the cones adapt rapidly to changes in light intensities, the rods take much longer. Walking from bright sunlight into a dark movie theater is an example of this dark adaptation period experience. The rods can take approximately 30 minutes to fully adapt to darkness. A bright light, however, can completely destroy night adaptation, leaving night vision severely compromised while the adaptation process is repeated. Hypoxia also affects vision. Sharp, clear vision, with the best being equal to 20/20 vision, requires significant oxygen, especially at night. As altitude increases, the available oxygen decreases, degrading night vision. Compounding the problem is fatigue, which minimizes physiological well-being. Adding fatigue to high-altitude exposure is a recipe for disaster. In fact, if flying at night at an altitude of 12,000 feet, the pilot may actually see elements of his or her normal vision missing or not in focus. Missing visual elements resemble the missing pixels in a digital image, while unfocused vision is dim and washed out. For the pilot suffering the effects of hypoxic hypoxia, A simple descent to a lower altitude may not be sufficient to reestablish vision. For example, a climb from 8,000 feet to 12,000 feet for 30 minutes does not mean a descent to 8,000 feet will rectify the problem. Visual acuity may not be regained for over an hour. Thus, it is important to remember, altitude and fatigue have a profound effect on a pilot's ability to see. Several things can be done to keep the eyes adapted to darkness. The first is obvious. Avoid bright lights before and during flight. For 30 minutes before a night flight, avoid any bright light sources, such as headlights, landing lights, strobe lights, or flashlights. If a bright light is encountered, close one eye to keep it light sensitive. This allows the use of that eye to see again when the light is gone. Red flight deck lighting also helps preserve night vision, but red light severely distorts some colors and completely washes out the color red. This makes reading an aeronautical chart difficult. A dim white light or a carefully directed flashlight can enhance night reading ability. While flying at night, keep the instrument panel and interior lights turned up no higher than necessary. This helps to see outside references more easily. If the eyes become blurry, blinking more frequently often helps. Diet and general physical health have an impact on how well a pilot can see in the dark. Deficiencies in vitamins A and C have been shown to reduce night acuity. Other factors, such as carbon monoxide poisoning, smoking, alcohol, certain drugs, and a lack of oxygen, can also greatly decrease night vision. Night vision illusions. There are many different types of visual illusions that commonly occur at night. Anticipating and staying aware of them is usually the best way to avoid them. Autokinesis. Autokinesis is caused by staring at a single point of light against a dark background for more than a few seconds. After a few moments, the light appears to move on its own. To prevent this illusion, focus the eyes on objects at varying distances and avoid fixating on one target. Be sure to maintain a normal scan pattern. False horizon. A false horizon can occur when the natural horizon is obscured or not readily apparent. It can be generated by confusing bright stars and city lights. It can also occur while flying toward the shore of an ocean or a large lake. Because of the relative darkness of the water, the lights along the shoreline can be mistaken for stars in the sky. Refer to Figure 16-15. Night landing illusions. Landing illusions occur in many forms. Above featureless terrain at night, there is a natural tendency to fly a lower than normal approach. Elements that cause any type of visual obscurities, such as rain, haze, or a dark runway environment, can also cause low approaches. Bright lights, steep surrounding terrain, and a wide runway can produce the illusion of being too low, with a tendency to fly a higher than normal approach. A set of regularly spaced lights along a road or highway can appear to be runway lights. Pilots have even mistaken the lights on moving trains as runway or approach lights. Bright runway or approach lighting systems can create the illusion that the airplane is closer to the runway, especially where few lights illuminate the surrounding terrain. Pilots who are flying at night should strongly consider oxygen supplementation at altitudes and times not required by the FAA, especially at night when critical judgment and hand-eye coordination is necessary, for example IFR, or if a smoker or not perfectly healthy.
Ladies, how was that first one? Could you hear it?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, cool. Okay, we're gonna go to this slide right here, and it's going to show us where the night blind spot is. And this is the area of best night vision. So pilots must look 5 to 10 degrees off center of the object in order for the object to be seen. So don't focus on something, straight ahead, kind of look off 5 to 10 degrees. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, I don't understand the picture either. Can you explain what?
Let me see. Right here, let me go back. Here's the picture one more time.
Yeah, so you've got, what's that ball supposed to represent, or whatever that thing is?
Okay, so this is the eyeball right here.
That's our eyeball. Okay.
That's our eyeball.
Okay.
So right here would be like our pupil, like
okay.
straight ahead. And
okay.
this would kind of be our peripheral vision.
Okay.
So we don't want to look at things straight ahead, look right at things, because at night our eyes don't work that way.
Oh. So looking to our sides.
Yes. So you would want to look at an object 5 to 10 degrees off.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Would that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so here we go to the next slide. So nighttime, use offset viewing and scan slowly. So remember that as well, to scan slowly. And avoid bright lights for at least 30 minutes prior to flight. So that way your eyes can get used to it.
That's funny. Now I have a reason to tell everybody why I'm a vampire. It's for my flying, really.
Yes, I gotta stay in the dark.
Is there a preference for either, like, I have a headset, either like a red or a green in the cockpit to refer to for your light? Or does it make a difference, or is it more of a preference for the pilot?
Well, they do recommend to use the color red, or, you know, a flashlight with the red light for the cockpit, or use, you know, regular flashlight, but in a very dim setting. Does that make sense? Or was that okay?
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah, no,
okay.
I've used both, I think, and I think I prefer the red, but I'm just kind of curious if there's a preference for either one. So,
according to the book, is recommended to use red light, and there are some flashlights out there specifically for night flying, and kind of a headlamp that have the red option on it. And also, I would also recommend for everybody to play with these flashlights before, like maybe the night before, and learn how to use them before your night flight, just in case you need them. You're not kind of fumbling around to learn how to use them when you really need them. And this previous slide talked about self-imposed stress. So if you know you already have your night flight scheduled, and you know you're going to be flying that night, try to take it easy. Don't overdo yourself, because you want to be at your best when you're flying, especially at night, because it takes a lot out of you. So I'm going to read this right here. Let's see. Night flight can be more fatiguing than day flight, and many self-imposed stressors can limit night vision. Pilots can control this type of stress by knowing the factors that can cause self-imposed stressors. These factors are drugs, legal and illegal drugs. So, you know, make sure you don't take something that you don't know how you're going to react to it before you flight. Exhaustion. So try to be well rested and try to take care of yourself, be in good physical condition, you know, exercise, feed yourself well, and remember alcohol. Remember the rule, 8 hours from bottle to throttle. And some people like me, I would actually take more like 12 hours from drinking to flying. And also tobacco. If you are a smoker, even during day flying, you tend to need more oxygen when flying up at altitudes. And consider, it says here that that an individual's night vision declines measurably at pressure altitudes above 4,000 feet. Any questions on that? Okay, I'm to the next. So it also talks, go ahead.
Sorry, I was a little slow on the draw there. I just wanted to point out on the last slide, there's a misspelling. Tobacco is spelled wrong in the text.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Let's see. So night illusions. On the very first slide, it talked about autokinesis, false horizon, but there's also other ones. Reversible perspective illusion, size distance illusion, fascination fixation illusion, and then Flickr Vertigo, and then night landing illusions. So I'm going to go ahead and go through all of these, and then the night landing illusions will go through those near the end. So the autokinesis. So in the dark, a static light will appear to move about when stared at for several seconds. So try not to stare at something for long periods of time, because it will play tricks on you. False horizon. So here, this is the actual horizon, and this is what appears to be the horizon to you. And here we have the attitude indicator. So you would want to always trust your instruments. So these are the kind of tricks, the lights, the outside reference lights will look. But remember, always trust your instruments. Has anybody had any examples of this or have experienced any of these yet?
We're doing the goggles where you do only your instruments and you can't see out.
Okay, and that's during the daytime.
Yeah, but not at night, yeah.
Okay, not at night yet. Okay. Now, night flying is a lot of fun, and I would recommend people to do it on a full moon.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
It's a beautiful, check your calendars and make sure, you try to schedule those night flyings during full moons, because you can really see a lot. You can really see a lot, and it's just beautiful to fly with a full moon. You can see mountains, actually.
I've done 8 takeoffs and landings already from a previous instructor, and it gets a little. You need really understand your landmarks really well. I found out.
Yes.
Some things.
Yes, and I would recommend to study your airports that you're going to really, really well for obstacles around the airport. And just, now with Google and ForeFlight, you have all these things that can help you to kind of look at the surroundings and kind of know where you're going to be and know how high the obstacles are, and just get very familiar. And reversible perspective illusion. So an aircraft may appear to be moving away when it is really moving towards you. And these are just, tricks that your brain will play on you, because it's nighttime and you just don't have that perspective that you have during the day. Okay, so here we have position lights. So as we know, if we're forward facing, the left is going to have the red light on the wing tips, and the right is going to have the green light on the right. And of course, at the tail, we're going to have the white light. And then here we have, so if there is an aircraft moving from the left to the right, so from the left to the right, we're going to see a white light and a green light. And if we have an aircraft moving from the right to the left, the lights that we're going to see a red light and a white light. And what I like to do is screenshot a lot of these things, and maybe after you guys can watch the recording and kind of just follow it along after we're all done. I think it's a good idea. And of course, you know, aircraft incoming. So it's going to be, how would I say, face to face with it. So you would have a green light on your left and a red light on your right. And then, you know, an aircraft going the same way you are going, you're going to see a red light and a white light and a green light. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to move to the next one. So the size distance illusion. So when one stares at a point of light, it may appear to approach or recede rapidly. So don't stare at things for too long. Keep your scan going. Fascination fixation. So this illusion occurs when pilots ignore orientation cues and fix their attention on a goal or an object. Student pilots tend to have this happen when they are concentrating on the aircraft instruments or attempting to land. They become fixated on one task and forget to look at what is going on around them. At night, this can be especially dangerous because aircraft ground closure rates are difficult to determine, and there may be minimal time to correct the situation. So don't fixate on something. Look around. Take the whole, look at the whole picture. And then we have Flickr Vertigo. So, you know, when light flickers at a rate of 4 to 10 cycles per second, it might really mess up with your head. And the severe case, you know, it might cause nausea, vomiting, and of course, and this is just severe symptoms of Flickr Vertigo. Any question, ladies, before I move to the next voice slide? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and play it.
Nighttime. Night flying requires special consideration. If the trip includes flying at night over water or unpopulated areas with a chance of losing visual reference to the horizon, the pilot must be prepared to fly IFR. Will the flight conditions allow a safe emergency landing at night? Pre-flight all aircraft lights, interior and exterior, for a night flight. Carry at least 2 flashlights, one for exterior pre-flight and a smaller one that can be dimmed and kept nearby.
Okay, this one is a short slide, and we're gonna go to the next one. So pre-flight. So before every night flight, you're going to pre-flight all aircraft lights, interior and exterior, for night flight. Flashlights. So bring extra, at least 2 flashlights and extra batteries. And they do recommend to have a flashlight with red lighting on it to use for the interior of the aircraft. And remember to avoid bright lights inside the cockpit because it will ruin your night vision. And one very important thing to bring along, and especially during your night flight, it's a handheld radio. And in case of an electrical malfunction, a handheld radio can be used to communicate. and to turn runway lights on for landing. And of course, if you're going to a non-towered airport or an airport that is closed for the day, you as a pilot is going to have to turn those lights on to land and to find the airport. So there are some handheld radios that you can charge. Personally, I like the one that has batteries. I own one that has batteries. So I just got to make sure that the batteries are fully charged, and I always bring extra batteries. And this one is a lifesaver to have a handheld radio with you, especially at night. I carried it all the time during the day and night. Does anybody have a handheld yet?
I have a handheld, but I need to have assistance programming it.
Okay.
Maybe that could be a future class.
Yes. I mean, yeah, and that's another thing that, you know, if you do have a handheld, you know, learn how to use it before your night flight. That way, you know how to tune it in and how to talk in it just in case of an emergency. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next slide with voice. And okay, here we is it loud enough for everybody?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
The volume controls will be on our unique machines anyway, so.
Okay. Sounds good. Here we go.
Starting, taxiing, and run up. After the pilot is seated in the cockpit and prior to starting the engine, all items and materials to be used on the flight should be arranged in such a manner that they will be readily available and convenient to use. Extra caution should be taken at night to assure the propeller area is clear. Turning the rotating beacon on or flashing the airplane position lights will serve to alert persons nearby to remain clear of the propeller. To avoid excessive drain of electrical current from the battery, it is recommended that the unnecessary electrical equipment be turned off until after the engine has been started. After starting and before taxiing, the taxi or landing light should be turned on. Continuous use of the landing light with RPM power settings normally used for taxiing may place an excessive drain on the airplane's electrical system. Also, overheating of the landing light could become a problem because of inadequate airflow to carry the heat away. Landing light should be used as necessary while taxiing. When using landing lights, consideration should be given to not blinding other pilots. Taxi slowly, particularly in congested areas. If taxi lines are painted on the ramp or taxiway, these lines should be followed to ensure a proper path along the route. The before takeoff and run-up should be performed using the checklist. During the day, forward movement of the airplane can be detected easily. At night, the airplane could creep forward without being noticed unless the pilot is alert for this possibility. Hold or lock the brakes during the run-up and be alert for any forward movement. Takeoff and climb. Night flying is very different from day flying and demands more attention of the pilot. The most noticeable difference is the limited availability of outside visual references. Therefore, flight instruments should be used to a greater degree in controlling the airplane. This is particularly true on night takeoffs and climbs. The cockpit light should be adjusted to a minimum brightness that will allow the pilot to read the instruments and switches and yet not hinder the pilot's outside vision. This will also eliminate light reflections on the windshield and windows. After ensuring that the final approach and runway are clear of other air traffic, or when cleared for takeoff by the tower, the landing lights and taxi lights should be turned on, and the airplane lined up with the center line of the runway. If the runway does not have centerline lighting, use the painted centerline and the runway edge lights. After the airplane is aligned, the heading indicator should be noted or set to correspond to the known runway direction. To begin the takeoff, the brake should be released and the throttle smoothly advanced to maximum allowable power. As the airplane accelerates, it should be kept moving straight ahead, between and parallel to the runway edge lights. The procedure for night takeoffs is the same as for normal daytime takeoffs, except that many of the runway visual cues are not available. Therefore, the flight instruments should be checked frequently during the takeoff to ensure the proper pitch attitude, heading, and airspeed are being attained. As the airspeed reaches the normal liftoff speed, the pitch attitude should be adjusted to that which will establish a normal climb. This should be accomplished by referring to both outside visual references, such as lights, and to the flight instruments. See Figure 10-3. After becoming airborne, the darkness of night often makes it difficult to note whether the airplane is getting closer to or farther from the surface. To ensure the airplane continues in a positive climb, be sure a climb is indicated on the attitude indicator, vertical speed indicator, VSI, and altimeter. It is also important to ensure the airspeed is at best climb speed. Necessary pitch and bank adjustments should be made by referencing the attitude and heading indicators. It is recommended that turns not be made until reaching a safe maneuvering altitude. Although the use of landing lights provides help during the takeoff, they become ineffective after the airplane has climbed to an altitude where the light beam no longer extends to the surface. The light can cause distortion when it is reflected by haze, smoke, or fog that might exist in the climb. Therefore, when the landing light is used for the takeoff, it may be turned off after the climb is well established, provided other traffic in the area does not require its use for collision avoidance.
Okay, we're going to go to our next one.
Orientation and navigation. Generally, at night, it is difficult to see clouds and restrictions to visibility, particularly on dark nights or under overcast. The pilot flying under VFR must exercise caution to avoid flying into clouds or a layer of fog. Usually, the first indication of flying into restricted visibility conditions is the gradual disappearance of lights on the ground. If the lights begin to take on an appearance of being surrounded by a halo or glow, the pilot should use caution in attempting further flight in that same direction. Such a halo or glow around lights on the ground is indicative of ground fog. Remember that if a descent must be made through fog, smoke, or haze in order to land, the horizontal visibility is considerably less when looking through the restriction than it is when looking straight down through it from above. Under no circumstances should a VFR night flight be made during poor or marginal weather conditions unless both the pilot and aircraft are certified and equipped for Flight Under Instrument Flight Rules, IFR. The pilot should practice and acquire competency in straight and level flight, climbs and descents, level turns, climbing and descending turns, and steep turns. Recovery from unusual attitudes should also be practiced, but only on dual flights with a flight instructor. The pilot should also practice these maneuvers with all the cockpit lights turned off. This blackout training is necessary if the pilot experiences an electrical or instrument light failure. Training should also include using the navigation equipment and local nav aids. In spite of fewer references or checkpoints, night cross-country flights do not present particular problems if pre-planning is adequate, and the pilot continues to monitor position, time estimates, and fuel consumed. Nav aids, if available, should be used to assist in monitoring en route progress. Crossing large bodies of water at night in single-engine airplanes could be potentially hazardous, not only from the standpoint of landing, ditching, in the water, but also because, with little or no lighting, the horizon blends with the water, in which case depth perception and orientation become difficult. During poor visibility conditions over water, the horizon will become obscure and may result in a loss of orientation. Even on clear nights, the stars may be reflected on the water's surface, which could appear as a continuous array of lights, thus making the horizon difficult to identify. Lighted runways, buildings, or other objects may cause illusions to the pilot when seen from different altitudes. At an altitude of 2,000 feet, a group of lights on an object may be seen individually, while at 5,000 feet or higher, the same lights could appear to be one solid light mass. These illusions may become quite acute with altitude changes, and if not overcome, could present problems in respect to approaches to lighted runways. Approaches and landings. When approaching the airport to enter the traffic pattern and land, it is important that the runway lights and other airport lighting be identified as early as possible. If the airport layout is unfamiliar to the pilot, sighting of the runway may be difficult until very close in due to the maze of lights observed in the area. See Figure 10-4. The pilot should fly toward the rotating beacon until the lights outlining the runway are distinguishable. To fly a traffic pattern of proper size and direction, the runway threshold and runway edge lights must be positively identified. Once the airport lights are seen, these lights should be kept in sight throughout the approach. Distance may be deceptive at night due to limited lighting conditions. A lack of intervening references on the ground and the inability of the pilot to compare the size and location of different ground objects cause this. This also applies to the estimation of altitude and speed. Consequently, more dependence must be placed on flight instruments, particularly the altimeter and the airspeed indicator. When entering the traffic pattern, allow for plenty of time to complete the before landing checklist. If the heading indicator contains a heading bug, setting it to the runway heading will be an excellent reference for the pattern legs. Every effort should be made to maintain the recommended airspeeds and execute the approach and landing in the same manner as during the day. A low, shallow approach is definitely inappropriate during a night operation. The altimeter and VSI should be constantly cross-checked against the airplane's position along the base leg and final approach. A visual approach slope indicator, VASI, is an indispensable aid in establishing and maintaining a proper glide path. See Figure 10-5. After turning onto the final approach and aligning the airplane midway between the two rows of runway edge lights, the pilot should note and correct for any wind drift. Throughout the final approach, pitch and power should be used to maintain a stabilized approach. Flaps should be used the same as in a normal approach. Usually, halfway through the final approach, the landing light should be turned on. Earlier use of the landing light may be necessary because of operation lights on or for local traffic considerations. The landing light is sometimes ineffective since the light beam will usually not reach the ground from higher altitudes. The light may even be reflected back into the pilot's eyes by an existing haze, smoke, or fog. This disadvantage is overshadowed by the safety considerations provided by using the operation lights on procedure around other traffic. The round out and touchdown should be made in the same manner as in day landings. At night, the judgment of height, speed, and sink rate is impaired by the scarcity of observable objects in the landing area. The inexperienced pilot may have a tendency to round out too high until attaining familiarity with the proper height for the correct round out. To aid in determining the proper round out point, continue a constant approach descent until the landing lights reflect on the runway and tire marks on the runway can be seen clearly. At this point, the round out should be started smoothly and the throttle gradually reduced to idle as the airplane is touching down. See Figure 10-6. During landings, without the use of landing lights, the round out may be started when the runway lights at the far end of the runway first appear to be rising higher than the nose of the airplane. This demands a smooth and very timely round out and requires that the pilot feel for the runway surface using power and pitch changes as necessary for the airplane to settle slowly to the runway. Blackout landing should always be included in night pilot training as an emergency procedure.
Well, that was a long one, but I think it was a very informative one. So here we're going to talk about coming into an airport, and this would be your 45-degree entry into the pattern. So you would want to start looking for that rotating beacon, which is, let's see. So it would be an alternating white and green lights. And if you're going into an airport that's it's got a control tower, you can actually ask them to either turn up the lights or dim them. Can you guys see my mouse?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, so and then you would want to be ahead of the airplane. You know, you would want to do your pre-landing checks way ahead of time, so that way you're not rushed, and because you're kind of in a new environment when it's nighttime. Everything looks different. The mind plays tricks on you. And then, are you guys familiar with the memory aid tomato flames?
I am not.
Okay, so this memory aid helps you in remembering what is the type of equipment you need for day flying. So you would need, for day flying, you would need an airspeed indicator, tachometer, oil pressure gauge, manifold pressure gauge, an altimeter, a temperature gauge, an oil temperature gauge, a fuel level gauge, a landing gear position indicator in case you have a retractable landing gear, anti-collision lights. Aircraft certified after March 11 of 1996, they need to have anti-collision lights, magnetic heading indicator, an emergency locator, transmitter, an ELT, and seat belts. So these are the list of equipment that you would need to fly day BFR. And then at night, you would have the same 8 tomato flames plus what is called flaps. So you would also want to have fuses, one complete spare set of fuses, you know, just in case things go dark on you. You have that handy flashlight, you can find your fuses and you can find which one popped and replace it, and the show goes on. Landing light, only if you're flying for hire. Anti-collision lights, position lights, and a source of electricity. So most airplanes have what is called a generator, and very old airplanes have what is, I mean, the planes that we fly right now, they have an alternator, an alternator, just like a car. And the old antique airplanes that do have an electrical system, they have generators. So this would be your source of electricity. Okay, now we're going to talk about night emergencies.
Night emergencies. Perhaps the pilot's greatest concern about flying a single-engine airplane at night is the possibility of a complete engine failure and the subsequent emergency landing. This is a legitimate concern, even though continuing flight into adverse weather and poor pilot judgment account for most serious accidents. If the engine fails at night, several important procedures and considerations to keep in mind are: maintain positive control of the airplane and establish the best glide configuration and airspeed. Turn the airplane towards an airport or away from congested areas. Check to determine the cause of the engine malfunction, such as the position of fuel selectors, magneto switch, or primer. If possible, the cause of the malfunction should be corrected immediately and the engine restarted. Announce the emergency situation to Air Traffic Control, ATC, or Unicom. If already in radio contact with a facility, do not change frequencies unless instructed to change. If the condition of the nearby terrain is known, turn towards an unlighted portion of the area. Plan an emergency approach to an unlighted portion. Consider an emergency landing area close to public access if possible. This may facilitate rescue or help if needed. Maintain orientation with the wind to avoid a downwind landing. Complete the before landing checklist and check the landing lights for operation at altitude and turn on in sufficient time to illuminate the terrain or obstacles along the flight path. The landing should be completed in the normal landing attitude and the slowest possible airspeed. If the landing lights are unusable and outside visual references are not available, the airplane should be held in level landing attitude until the ground is contacted. After landing, turn off all switches and evacuate the airplane as quickly as possible.
Let's talk a little bit about flying at night or flying cross countries. What I like to do is when I'm planning a night cross country flight, I like to overfly airports. Go from airport to airport to airport. And then when you're coming close to an airport, tune in that frequency and then, turn the lights on. Most airports have lights that they come on that are pilot control. So you just have to click the mic several times and the lights will come on. Some airports already have the lights. We'll have the lights on all night long. So that's just in case of an emergency, you're always close to an airport. It's and also the fuel reserve requirements for night flying. It's enough fuel to get to your destination plus 45 minutes. For daytime is, enough to get to your destination plus 30 minutes. But for nighttime is to your destination plus 45 minutes. Any questions? Okay, to the next one.
Approaches and landings. When approaching the airport to enter the traffic pattern and land, it is important that the runway lights and other airport lighting be identified as early as possible. If the airport layout is unfamiliar to the pilot, sighting of the runway may be difficult until very close in due to the maze of lights observed in the area. See Figure 10-4. The pilot should fly toward the rotating beacon until the lights outlining the runway are distinguishable. To fly a traffic pattern of proper size and direction, the runway threshold and runway edge lights must be positively identified. Once the airport lights are seen, these lights should be kept in sight throughout the approach. Distance may be deceptive at night due to limited lighting conditions. A lack of intervening references on the ground and the inability of the pilot to compare the size and location of different ground objects cause this. This also applies to the estimation of altitude and speed. Consequently, more dependence must be placed on flight instruments, particularly the altimeter and the airspeed indicator. When entering the traffic pattern, allow for plenty of time to complete the before landing checklist. If the heading indicator contains a heading bug, setting it to the runway heading will be an excellent reference for the pattern legs. Every effort should be made to maintain the recommended airspeeds and execute the approach and landing in the same manner as during the day. A low, shallow approach is definitely inappropriate during a night operation. The altimeter and VSI should be constantly cross-checked against the airplane's position along the base leg and final approach. A visual approach slope indicator, VASI, is an indispensable aid in establishing and maintaining a proper glide path. See Figure 10-5. After turning onto the final approach and aligning the airplane midway between the two rows of runway edge lights, the pilot should note and correct for any wind drift. Throughout the final approach, pitch and power should be used to maintain a stabilized approach. Flaps should be used the same as in a normal approach. Usually, halfway through the final approach, the landing light should be turned on. Earlier use of the landing light may be necessary because of operation lights on or for local traffic considerations. The landing light is sometimes ineffective since the light beam will usually not reach the ground from higher altitudes. The light may even be reflected back into the pilot's eyes by an existing haze, smoke, or fog. This disadvantage is overshadowed by the safety considerations provided by using the Operation Lights On procedure around other traffic. The round out and touchdown should be made in the same manner as in day landings. At night, the judgment of height, speed, and sink rate is impaired by the scarcity of observable objects in the landing area. The inexperienced pilot may have a tendency to round out too high until attaining familiarity with the proper height for the correct round out. To aid in determining the proper round out point, continue a constant approach descent until the landing lights reflect on the runway and tire marks on the runway can be seen clearly. At this point, the round out should be started smoothly and the throttle gradually reduced to idle as the airplane is touching down. See Figure 10-6. During landings, without the use of landing lights, the round out may be started when the runway lights at the far end of the runway first appear to be rising higher than the nose of the airplane. This demands a smooth and very timely round out and requires that the pilot feel for the runway surface using power and pitch changes as necessary for the airplane to settle slowly to the runway. Blackout landings should always be included in night pilot training as an emergency procedure.
Are we all still awake? I'm hoping I'm not too boring.
No, you're not boring. You're good. It's good.
Okay, cool.
I mean, it's not as fun as flying, but that's just what it is. It doesn't matter who's teaching us.
So this is a picture of what the lights look at night. Over here, you can see the runway, you know, and sometimes it's going to be difficult to find the runway, but here you can kind of see it hidden over here. And just be familiar, the lighting. So the blue lighting, this would be the taxi edge lighting. So all the blue is taxiways. And the white, these are the runway edge lightings. And the green here, it's here at the beginning of the runway. This is the threshold right here. And the red light over here is the end of the runway. And this would be, so night flying, if there is a VASI or a PAPI, when you click to turn the lights on, these will also come on. So remember, if you see the far bar and the near bar and they both are red, so you are below glide path. And then if the far bar is red and the near bar is white, you are on glide path. So this is what you want to see. And white over white, you are way too high. So this is what a PAPI lights look like, and this is what a VASI looks like. I've never seen these other ones, but as you can see here, number 3, you want to see on the PAPI, you want to see 2 and 2 and 2 and 2, and then the VASI, the 3 and the 3. And this is, you are on the glide slope. So this is what you want to be looking at. When you're on final, this is what you want to see. When you're on short final, so as you can see right here, you are on glide path on short final right here. And here, very, very short final. This is what you want to see. And then right before you flare, you know, you want to see those tire marks. And let's talk about illusions. Atmospheric illusions. So rain on the windscreen can create the illusion of greater height. Haze creates the illusion of being at a greater distance. penetration of fog can create the illusion of pitching up. And all these things you guys could read in the, if you guys have the aeronautical factors, the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, Chapter 7, talks about all the stuff that I've been talking about tonight. Ground lighting illusions. Lights along a straight path, such as a road, can be mistaken for runway lights. Bright runway lights and approach light systems can create the illusion of less distance to the runway. Featureless terrain illusion. Absence of ground features can, when landing over water, snow, or dark area, creates the illusion that the aircraft is higher than it actually is. So on final, when it's completely dark outside, there's nothing no lights you can see, it's really, really hard to tell how high you are. So really trust your instruments. Keep an eye on your airspeed indicator, on your altimeter. Runway and terrain slopes illusion. So an upsloping runway creates the illusion that the aircraft is higher than it really is. Runway width illusions. So wider than normal runway creates the illusion that the aircraft is lower than it really is. So there's, that is my slideshow. Any questions?
No questions.
Okay, just a few highlights for, avoid bright lights before and during flight. Have all your items readily available, like the flashlight, like the handheld, easy to get to. And then learn how to use your flight lights and to program your handheld before the flight. And it might be a good idea to do flight following at nighttime, especially at nighttime. And fly over airports. Any questions, ladies?